Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, Justin Baker, my co-host, and as the NHL season looms, we're coming closer. Maybe it's not looming. It's not really looming. It's like we're starting to see the shades of it, little shadows of regular season, but almost to training camp.
I feel like this is a nice story that's about to begin, and
yes.
need to sit down by a campfire and listen.
Yes, that's. I can't wait for a campfire tonight. 27 days until training camp, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're getting there, but as we continue to fill the gap left by Mitch Marner not signing, therefore the other 713 players that have yet to sign. We'll just sit and wait. There's not a whole lot happening other than, Kuznetsov does cocaine, big shocker. And did you hear about that?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody actually tried to put out like help me create an all Coke list, right? An all Coke team. But they spelled it COKE, and I thought at first when I read it, I'm like, Coca-Cola, what? And then I started reading down a little further. I'm like, oh, and then they're like David Perron on the team, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay,
It'd probably be a pretty good team. Sure.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure we could all.
Put Mike Richards in there too.
We can all figure out which guy beats up taxi cab drivers and ends up on the cocaine list. That's an easy one. Well, as we continue our off season, if you haven't been around, if it's your first time listening, welcome. We've been doing a series on the top 10 best players for each team throughout the National Hockey League. We have done multiple teams now. I think 6 teams: the Wings, Preds, Rangers, Ducks, Blues, and the Capitals. And so you can go back, you can listen to those or the last couple episodes. This time we are going to do one of the original 6, a team that's been around since I think 1925 or 24. They are the out of the teams in the NHL now, they are the most recent American team. Like they were the first American team essentially in the NHL, but they are the longest tenured American team in the NHL. Because I think there was some teams before that in the
New York Americans,
but
Detroit Cougars,
and even like the Seattle Metropolitans,
right?
But they obviously are no longer around. So a very old team. There are a lot of players who have played a lot of games for this franchise. I'd say out of any of the teams that we've done so far, I think this team has won the most Stanley Cups. Is that right? Yeah. Other than the Wings. The Wings have won more Stanley Cups.
They have.
But I'll say that despite the Wings having guys like Gordie Howe, Steve Yzerman, the Red Wings maybe have had a much more team guys. Like I'd say Pavel Datsyuk, even though he's phenomenal, he was never the best player in the league, but he was such a team guy and was willing to do anything. Same with Zetterberg, like never the best guy in the league, but definitely up there. And you put the right guys together, they win the cup.
Yeah, never had those. I mean, outside of maybe Yzerman and Howe and Lindstrom, you never had guys that were just Lindstrom. Yeah.
Whereas I think the Boston Bruins have maybe had some more like, this guy's the best player in the league, or the best player at his position, hands down. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they, of course, we'll get to guys that maybe would be considered in the top 5, definitely top 10 all-time greatest players, and so.
There's a couple of them for sure.
Yeah, when you're talking, and when you're talking the original 6, it's much easier to go. We basically did the total opposite for our second team, and we're gonna tackle the Vegas Golden Knights. A lot of players who have played for the Vegas Golden Knights. Some have even played more than 100 games for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Surprisingly, yeah. I figured there would probably be a couple people on the list that maybe have only played like a dozen games.
Yeah, I guess that's possible.
Hey, you'll have to wait and see
if you have Malcolm Subban on there or something. So okay, with that said, we'll just jump right into it, and we're going to start with the Boston Bruins. We'll spend the majority of our time on the Bruins since it's a little bit easier to do so. So let's start with your just missed.
Yeah, a couple goaltenders for me actually. Tuukka Rask, one of them that just missed, and Tiny Thompson.
Yeah,
a guy who basically still leads the Bruins in wins. one of the better goaltenders that this franchise has seen. But he did. It's funny. He still leads the team in shutouts as well. But
Tuukka Rask actually just passed him.
Did he really?
Yep,
Man,
this year.
I missed that.
265. So, yeah,
Okay.
Tuukka Rask is the all-time leader.
Well, Hockey Reference, update your facts, buddy. Yeah, and he still leads the franchise in shutouts by a wide margin, surprisingly enough. But
more than double Tuukka Rask.
yeah,
More than double the next guy.
just about. I mean,
Oh, no, Tuukka Rask 45, 75.
yeah, just about. I mean, pretty close anyways. But yeah, Tiny Thompson, 1.99 goals against average for his career, which is phenomenal. But he did play in an era where there wasn't, a ton of crap load of goal scoring back in the, I think, 30s and 40s. So
Yeah, he played late
30s,
20s into up to 1940. So I'm not sure that he did win one Stanley Cup.
he did.
They
Yeah.
defeated the Rangers 2-0 in a best of 3 in 1929. So
Yeah.
there's his lone Stanley Cup. It's so hard to tell, because you see, he played 6 games in the playoffs. We assume, well, that means that he lost in the first round, but really that means that they probably were in the finals.
Yeah.
So they're in the finals several times.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit harder to put a goaltender in this era up on the list just because, one, there's not a lot of competition, and two, you're pretty much, starting every game. I mean, it's rare that these guys had a night off anyway. So
Well, and if if we're talking like a guy who's winning the Vezina
right.
many times,
'Cause there's only
like
5
Jacques
other
Plante,
people.
there's not much you can do. Like, you have to put him on a list. 'Cause
Right.
He even though there's only 5 other guys, maybe 6 other guys in a tandem, you still
when
have
you're
to
the
recognize.
best.
All right, this guy was the best every year for for practically a decade.
Right.
That means that he was pretty.
He was good,
phenomenal.
yeah.
So, well, my just miss. I actually same thing. I said goalies.
Okay.
Because it's surprising to see a team that's been around for so long and they don't have any goalies with more than 300 wins, or they're just creeping up. Tuukka Rask will probably hit 300 if he's with the Bruins for 2 more years. That's my
Yeah,
guess.
he'll get it.
He'd need like 35 wins this year to hit 300.
Yeah.
It's just surprising that there's never been, they've had some decent goalies over the years, but they've kind of goalie carouseled it all through the 90s. And
Yeah, they really have.
I also had Wayne Cashman on my just
Ooh,
missed.
okay.
So he's going to miss my list. Anybody else on your just missed that
No.
you want to recognize? Okay, well, let's go to your number 10.
Number 10, probably my most hated player in the NHL right now, but Brad Marchand.
Okay.
Yeah, not a huge fan of his, but you can't deny the impact, that he's had since he and Bergeron and that group of guys came into the league here with Boston and the success they've had. And so obviously he's up there in points. I think he's 13th or 14th all time for this team.
14th. yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
But in terms of points per game,
yeah, that's a little harder.
he's got more than a point per game. He's just shy of it.
He's close. Yeah.
He's close. 8-2-1, which in this era is fantastic.
It is, absolutely.
And you got to consider the fact that early on in his career, he was more this like third line kinda
Checker
like
role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then now,
I mean, he just had a 100-point season.
Yeah,
So, yeah, he's pretty dang good player. There's no denying it. So,
and he scores goal. He's scored almost as many goals as he has assists, which is telling.
yeah, when you're playing on a line too with Pasternak and Bergeron. So,
Yeah, I mean, he has 50 less goals than Bergeron.
yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
In 400 less games, 350 less games. So.
all right, so number 10 for you.
Number 10 for me is the all-time leader in penalty minutes for this team. Also had 606 points in 891 games. Won a couple Stanley Cups. That is Don Cherry's favorite guy, Terry O'Reilly.
Terry O'Reilly.
Terry O'Reilly.
I thought about him, and he, you know what? I could have probably put him on my just miss, to be honest.
Yeah, well, the other side of it too is the fact that, I mean, he has, it's not like he's scoring a ton of goals, but only 18 of them coming on the power play. So definitely a solid 5-on-5 guy. He, we won't write too much into plus minus because the Bruins were considerably better than some teams at different points, but a plus 222 over the course of your career as a forward, as a guy who's just throwing his body around for the most, 2,000 penalty minutes in 800 in basically 900 games. To have that kind of plus minus is pretty fantastic. Although Bobby Orr had a few more than that, a few 574. But we'll get to him. So Terry O'Reilly is my number 10. I felt like he's on there because he was really the heart and soul, I think, of that team. Where Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, those kind of guys were they were the big point getters. They were the guys you were relying upon. But Terry O'Reilly was some of the heartbeat behind that team, and protected those guys during an era where we got to think back. There were a lot of teams that were trying desperately to hurt these guys, and Terry O'Reilly was the guy who was protecting them. So,
well said.
Yeah, you're number 9.
Number 9 for me, a goaltender, Tim Thomas.
Oh, you're putting Tim Thomas on there.
Yeah, I am.
Not Tuukka.
I really thought about it. Obviously, Tim Thomas was the guy that took them to the Stanley Cup, and I think that's why he got the nod over Tuukka for me. Not to mention, Tim Thomas does have a couple of Vezinas and a Conn Smythe to his name, which Tuukka does not.
Nope.
So,
I think if the Bruins had won the Cup against the Blues, Tuukka would have won the Conn Smythe.
Yeah.
I have a hard time blaming Tuukka Rask for not winning the Cup. I don't think that it was his fault that they didn't beat the Blues.
So I will say that while I do think he was a big reason why they got to the Cup Finals, he wasn't the same goaltender in the Stanley Cup Finals.
In the finals itself.
Yeah, I mean, while he was fine, but it wasn't, he didn't excel where he definitely could have, and I think there was, especially people were pointing to the big time game and the elimination game where like, oh, that's where he typically falls apart. And guess what? He kind of didn't look so hot. So, but Tim Thomas, for me, I can still remember that save against Toronto where he's just like 10 feet out in the middle, out of the crease, and he just leaps across. And I can't remember the name from the Leafs.
Yeah, doesn't matter. He's not on the Leafs anymore. I think the only guy left from that team now is Morgan Riley.
That's true. Yeah, but Tim Thomas, during his heyday, I mean, God, he was phenomenal. And
oh yeah, I mean, he was a blast to watch.
Yeah, he was fun. And for those who don't know, actually, I think it was his parents. They pawned their wedding ring when he was in his 20s to get him some goalie equipment because he wanted to go to college. And I think University of Maine is where he went to college and play some hockey. And he didn't have the money for equipment, so they pawned their ring and then. And then most people don't actually know either. Like his mask was one of the things that always interested me about him because he had such a unique mask. It wasn't like Chris Osgood where he had just an older mask from another era that he was wearing, but he had his mask designed to where the cage came all the way down to his chin because it helped him breathe better.
So he designed his own.
Yeah,
his own form of it. That's cool. Yeah, I thought about it. I thought, should I put Tuukka Rask? He's the all-time leader in wins, and he has actually like better regular season numbers than Tim Thomas even does. And Tim Thomas, he had a phenomenal playoff that year. He was really good in the playoffs. The year they went to the conference finals as well. I couldn't put him on there because of there's 4 goalies in the organization who have played. Who started more games for this team, who have won more games for this team. And like Jerry Cheevers actually he's won 2 Stanley Cups, and he actually has more wins and fewer losses over that time. Granted, his statistics in terms of goals against and all that it's different, but different eras, hard to tell. That's why I just said with my just missed, all the goalies just missed.
Okay.
Is that he did. And now, who's the best goalie out of all those 4? I think Tim Thomas had the best stretch.
In their prime.
Yes,
yeah.
He had the best stretch. And if this team wasn't so loaded with talent, I thought about putting him at number 10 instead of Terry O'Reilly, but I just felt like Terry O'Reilly was kind of a face of the Bruins at the time. Tim Thomas sort of fell from grace a little bit with the Bruins. He did a little bit
because Dallas and Florida there, and
he decided that he didn't want to go to the White House, and that was kind of like the beginning of his demise.
Yeah, took a year off, and
yeah. And for anybody that, I mean, I've always even at the time doesn't matter who you like. I mean, usually if you like Obama, you don't like Trump. If you like Trump, you probably didn't like Obama. But either like you just go to the White House because it's just
tradition,
kind of what you do. Like it's not like you're supporting whoever's there.
No,
you're just
you don't
going
have to
because
agree with the political agendas or whatever.
Yeah, no. And anybody that's they just want a picture with the players to make them look good. Well, yeah, they want a picture of the players because that's just what happens. I just thought that was overblown. Everything's overblown with people not wanting to go. Like you just go and you have a good time and like
you get a freaking sweet dinner out of it. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. And I didn't like it at the time when he did it. I don't like it when players do it now. I think that it's more culturally acceptable to not go now than it was with Obama. It was seen more like Tim Thomas is racist, which he wasn't, but or isn't. But I don't know. I think that maybe pulls him off my list just because I don't know how much. Like, do Bruins fans? Maybe if you're a Bruins fan, you can chime in. Do you look at Tim Thomas and do you think about what he did to win a cup, or does it kind of get a little bit muddy because of the way that he left the team? And so it's hard to put.
I understand that.
And when there's so many guys whose numbers have been honored and all these things, it's hard. It's hard to throw him on there. But I think for me, ultimately, all that aside, there's just goalies that did more for this organization over a longer period of time. Even though he did have, you're absolutely right, the best stretch for any Boston goaltender. Okay, well, that's a long time to spend on number 9. My number 9 is the 4th overall point scorer for the Bruins, and that is Rick Middleton. 898 points in 881 games, and 402 goals to boot. So also 3rd all-time in goals, just behind Esposito and Johnny Busick. Played pretty much his entire career for the Bruins. Played his first 2 for the Rangers, and then after that he was all Bruins for quite some time, from 76 to 88. And he did have some really nice playoffs too. I know he didn't ever win a cup with the Bruins. He was there right after the Bruins were real good. But 100 points in 114 playoff games, pretty solid, including a year where he had 33 points in 17 games in the playoffs.
Yeah, not too bad.
Definitely a guy who was maybe during an era where that was like the early Ray Bourque era, and it was kind of during a time where the Bruins maybe were down a little bit, although they were making the playoffs like freaking every year for they make the playoffs every year for like 30 years, I think.
Something like that.
They have the record, I think, for most.
Yeah, I think it's 33 years maybe.
I know them and St. Louis both have 2 of the longest ones.
Yes, St. Louis, just for some reason 90s, and they just kept going.
Always made the play. Well, they made the playoffs from like basically the time that they were in the league and never missed for
the early 2000s. Yeah.
So, So he is my number 9. Who's your number 8?
Number 8 for me is Cam Neely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really curious as to who's higher up on your list, because you've already said 2 players who are both like at least 2 spots higher on my list both times. So I'm curious as to who's up on your list.
Yeah, and my list maybe is...
I hope you have Jerome McGinley on your list. Maybe Yager. Yager played for the Bruins, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He played for like 9 teams. He went from being a guy who was like only Pittsburgh to I'm going to play
Philly,
for everybody.
Washington, Dallas. Yeah. Like I'm just going to go around. Yeah.
I think he played for Philadelphia too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. For a hot minute. There's actually a group of people that used to follow him around in the AHL. They all wear the different jerseys. It's fantastic. Cam Neely for me. 590 points, 525 games played for this guy. Just a dynamic force in an era maybe again where the team wasn't having a lot of success in terms of playoff
they did make
wins.
The finals in 91.
Yes, they did. Yeah. But no Stanley Cups to show for it. But again, you can't really deny the impact this guy had on a team that maybe, again, didn't have a lot of big name players on the team.
Just Ray Bourque.
Yeah. Well, I don't count him. Because he went to Colorado.
And Cam Neely, you want to talk about a guy who was a playoff hoss.
Yes.
First year in the playoffs, they lost in 4 games, but he had 5 goals and an assist, so 6 points in 4 games. Then he goes in 23 games, he's got 9 goals and 8 assists, 17 points, including 51 penalty minutes. The year following that, he's got 9 points in 10 games. Then in 89-90, he had 28 points in 21 games, 12 goals. The following year, in 19 games, he scores 16 goals, and that was
pretty dang good.
That was the year that they went to the finals, right? 91, yeah,
yeah. And so, I guess maybe that's a bigger reason why he's on my list. Now, the lack of playoff success as a team, maybe no hardware to really show for it, I guess, is maybe why he didn't go a little bit higher on my list. Yeah, and same with a guy like Rick Middleton, right? Maybe, missed my list just mainly because, they didn't have, any Stanley Cups to show for it. And, to me, again, that was in an era where guys were scoring a ton of points. So the point totals may be a little inflated, but, Cam Neely was still getting it done in the early 90s when goal scoring was at a premium and they weren't doing a ton. So, yeah, that's why for me he's
and Cam Neely he wasn't winning. He wasn't winning
hard
the best
trophies
player in the league. He was kind of your prototypical power forward. He was just hurt all the time.
He was.
When you look at the games played, I mean, he never played a full season, not once. And in his last, from age 25 to 30, he retired at age 30.
Right.
The most games he played was 69 games. In 91, 92, he only played 9 games, 13 in 92, 93, and then he played 49, 42, 49. So, I mean, still, 93, 94 only played 49 games. Oh, he had 50 goals. He's just a phenomenal player. It's just too bad that I believe it was his knees. Something with his knees. And, I wonder if we had the medical advances now that, or that we do now then, if maybe Cam Neely was able to get things fixed up and was able to play and be able to actually be healthy.
Right, and you say the same thing about maybe Bobby Orr as well. Like, what kind of success would he have had?
Yeah. So. If his knees didn't fall apart, absolutely. Something about Boston and knees. I don't know. Is that the mafia?
Just lead piping.
Maybe they owed money. I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Number 8 for you.
Number 8 for me is Brad Marchand.
Okay.
I have him up a little bit higher on this list. I think I have him higher on this list based maybe a little bit on potential. I mean, by the end of next season, let's say he really pulls back and has a 70-point season,
which is still freaking good.
Still a nice season, but a 70 point. Well, we'll go 71 to make the number a little bit easier. That'll put him at 630 points. That puts him 10th all time in scoring. So if he has a 100-point season again, assuming David Krejci scores no more points, he would surpass David Krejci. But in 3 years, he could be 4th all time in scoring. If he has some really nice seasons, and
which is possible.
And goal scoring is trending up, so maybe a 100-point season becomes a little bit more like, hey, you score 100 points, you're one of the 10 guys who scores 100 points, kind of like it was in like the mid 90s. Right. Where your best players were all getting 100 points. The very best was getting 130, and to me, I think that's the sweet spot. Like, it sucks when the best player in the league or the top scorer in the league has 85 or what it was 87 for Jamie Benn,
when
he won the Ross. Yeah, there's something about multiple guys hitting 100 points, and I mean, I know you're a goalie, so maybe you.
No, I love it when goal scoring is up, to be quite honest. But I also love it when freaking goalies stand on their heads. So.
Well, yes, I like if the opportunities are there and a goalie is just lights out. It's so much better. Like when Martin Brodeur was winning every game, he was winning like 45 games a year. It was so boring. And you didn't necessarily you knew that Martin Brodeur he was a top 3 goalie in the league at all times, whenever he was in the league.
Minus St. Louis, but yes.
Okay. All right. Yes. When he went to St. Louis, he was no good. During the prime of his career.
We get it. Yeah.
It was never something where you felt like, another goalie. No way could another goalie come in here and play well. Like, you knew it was set up for a goalie. It was a system built for a goalie. And I think we're starting to see the tip back from these huge, massive goalies to like, hey, you need to actually be athletic too.
Sure.
Because these guys are going to be able to move the puck around a little easier. And your equipment's getting smaller. So,
well, there you go.
All right. Number 7.
Number 7 for me, guy maybe not high in the point totals, but high in my heart, Eddie Shore.
Eddie Shore, a guy that didn't make my list at all, but I know he won a lot of Norris trophies.
He won a bunch of Norris trophies. Yeah, actually he didn't win any, but
no?
Yeah, no.
He didn't win any?
No. He won a bunch of
Can
Hearts,
we go back and just Hearts. Oh, my bad. Oh, sorry. He won MVPs of the league. There probably was no Norris.
No, there wasn't. No.
All right.
Yeah, he won 4 Hart trophies as a defenseman, which is freaking awesome. He's got a couple cups to his name, and he went to the All-Star game 8 times. But again, in the 30s and late 20s, like, All-Star games are a wash. Like, I don't give a crap how many you go to.
Goes to the All-Star
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So,
there's 2 teams. There's only 16. Actually, at the time, there was like 8 teams in the league.
That's true.
There was more than the original 6. The original 6 is pretty much a total crock. Like, there definitely were more teams than that. And,
yeah. Well, New York had 2 teams at one point. So.
Right.
Bye.
The St. Louis Eagles, the Detroit Cougars, Seattle Metropolitans, the Ottawa Senators in the 20s.
Right. Forget about that team.
And they were good.
They were good too. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, the hardware is phenomenal for a guy who played defense, and he to me was pretty much like the first incarnation of the offensive defenseman. Right. He showed that you could move your feet, you could go up and take the puck up and score some goals. I mean, granted, he didn't get a ton of goals in his time. I mean, early in his career, he had 5 straight seasons of scoring goals in the teens, but after that, it kind of, but after that, it dwindled down a little bit more. But I think, again, that's when in the 30s, people started playing with their elbows a little bit more. So, but a guy for me who literally was one of like the best defensemen at the time. And
yes, very true. Yeah, I won't disagree with that. I will admit he should be on my list, and he's not, because I largely ignored the 1920s and the Boston Bruins, and
I get it.
That's my bad. Well, my number 7 is also a defenseman.
Ooh.
And he's also a guy who has thrown around his body a little bit, and a guy who I think should win the Lady Byng Trophy every year, because he's chosen not to kill everyone on the ice. And that is Zdeno Chara.
Big Z.
Big Z, he is probably the most unique player to ever play the defensive position in the NHL. There's no one like him. I really don't think there's going to be another guy like him for a long time. Like, a guy who's essentially a wrestler becomes a hockey player and is fantastic at it, and is 6'9" to boot. You just don't find it. Guys are like, a 6'9" person isn't being encouraged to go the route of hockey. And so just the things that have to go right for you to make the league and look like that guy, and the fact that he's been doing it for a long time. He's 20th all time in Bruins scoring, and he's not a goal scorer at all. Like, that's
nope.
I guess you could say, like, earlier in his career, he was kind of more of a you stick him on the power play, and he was scoring some power play. He does have 69 out of his 143 goals are on the power play. So he was doing a little damage on the power play. And then remember, they shifted him to the front of the net for a little while on the pop, and trying to get him to the screen. And now that's just not the way you play anymore on the power play. So he doesn't get the same amount of... You don't need Chara to be your big power play guy when you have guys like McAvoy and Torrey Krug.
Right.
You've got guys that can move the puck, and that's more what it's about. But will play his 1,000th game for the Bruins this year. So, you just had Patrice Bergeron play his 1,000th game. Chara, barring some catastrophic injury, will play his 1,000th game as a Bruin. I can see David Krejci probably needs 2 years, and he'll be at 1,000 games. So you got all this group guys coming up who have all played a lot of games for them. But yeah, Chara 6th all time in games played for the Bruins. And in terms of defensemen, I'll put him the third best defenseman to ever don a Bruins jersey. Which
third? Wow.
As we get into these other defensemen, you'll go, oh yeah, I understand.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. That's why he's number 6 on my list.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, he's next up. And for a guy of his size and magnitude and wingspan, his skating ability is what impressed me most early on in his career, that he could actually move his feet a little bit. You figured he'd be a guy who, again, we talk about it with his power, his shot, that you would just stick him back on the point and say, don't move, just stay there, wait for the puck to come to you and just rip it, right? Well, he could move up and down the ice a little bit. And so, so for me, he's number 6, and mostly for the reasons you talked about. I mean, he does have a Norris Trophy to his name. He captained the Bruins to a Stanley Cup. So all good things for this guy, who honestly, early on in his career with the Islanders, you figured, okay, he's probably going to be a bottom pairing D-man to shut teams down. But
yeah, I mean, his first 3 seasons with the Islanders, he had 6 goals.
6 goals.
And then he gets traded to the Senators, and the next 3 seasons, he has 35.
Starts to open up, gets the opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, and he's had many multiple seasons in the teens of goals, and so that's goal scoring slowed down for him. He's now probably he's a second pairing guy, and of course, with the Bruins, you're like a top 4. He's still in the top 4, but
sure,
I think he is now a guy who has to have somebody who can skate around him. But
that's why they put him with McAvoy. It works out pretty well.
And he's played this year. I said he'll play his 1,000th game for the Bruins, but he'll also play his 1,500th game.
That's impressive. League. That's impressive.
That'll be 15 games into the season. So
big question though. At the end of all this, when he hangs up the skates, does he get his number to the rafters?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no doubt about it.
I mean, I don't doubt it either.
Also, the fact that he, oh my gosh, he's the cap. He's not the captain.
He's the captain.
He's the captain.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, is Patrice Bergeron the captain?
No, Bergeron will be the captain.
That's what's really interesting about it too, is the fact that you basically have these guys that are both captains.
They really are.
They could have just had them both had the C, and it would have been fine. But
just do that Carolina thing. You're the home captain. You're the away captain.
Right.
Hate that.
My number 6 is, autocorrect has decided that his name is Can Neely. So no Cam. I just like Ray Bork was Ray Boutique. Yeah, they just didn't want me to spell these guys' names. But Cam Neely's my number 6. I had him up a little bit higher on my list than you did, just based on the fact that he was so dominant, even though it was for a short amount of time. I mean, it wasn't that short, but he was maybe the most, like, the full package of a hockey player at that time. You're talking about a time where Mario Lemieux was in the league, and you had all these other superstars, and they did go head to head in 91. Lemieux obviously the better player, but Cam Neely definitely this guy he's fighting, he's hitting, he's scoring goals. He could just do it all. And I think for whatever reason, he kind of embodies Boston a lot. Like I think you think of a guy from Boston, you think of this hard-nosed type of player. And I think that he, based on that and the fact that he came back and he was, with the organization as in an executive role, I think that just shows that not only was he loved as a player, he's also appreciated for as a person. And so I have him a little bit higher up, number 6.
Okay.
And on to the top 5.
Top 5, drum roll. 5. Why don't you go first? Number 5.
All right. My number 5 is Phil Esposito.
Okay.
Yeah. I had him a little bit lower. I think that there's several guys that you could kind of flip around. I don't necessarily think talent-wise Phil Esposito was not better than some of the guys, maybe particular one guy ahead of him in my list, maybe a couple. But when I think of all-time Bruins, Phil Esposito definitely did the bulk of the damage in his career with the Bruins. I mean, he had 1.6 points a game. which is just ridiculous. Over 1,000 points in 625 games, 459 goals. Eventually went on to play for some other teams, played 625 games. And so my thought is all the guys ahead of him on my list have all played over 1,000 games for the Bruins. So they've just been with the Bruins for a significantly longer amount of time. And I think that the players ahead of him were more important for a longer period of time on the Bruins. So for that reason, I mean, if he's on any other team, I think Phil, like with this stat line, Phil Esposito is probably top 2, top 3 of every team that we've done so far, maybe outside the Red Wings.
Right.
But just had him at number 5.
Yeah, he comes in at number 4 for me, and the reason he's a little bit higher than this guy at number 5 is mainly because, one, the point totals were there, but the hardware, I think he got 5 Hart trophies or Art Ross trophies during his time. Yeah. He did get a Hart trophy.
I just think that so much of that was probably due to Bobby Orr.
Maybe.
Playing in Bobby Orr in his prime, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it might have a little bit to do with it, but maybe you can also make the argument too that, did Bobby Orr have some success because of a guy like Phil Esposito too. Sure. But anyways, number 5 for me is Patrice Bergeron, probably one of the best two-way guys to ever play the game, at least in my generation. So, again, you could easily...
Yuri Lettinen, dude.
He was freaking good too. Mark Stone for me is going to be that next guy who's going to start. Yeah, he and Ryan O'Reilly literally are going to battle it out now every year for best Selke player. But 4 Selkes to his name. Patrice Bergeron, one of the best faceoff guys. The only knock on him I have right now, and again, another reason why he didn't go ahead of Phil Esposito for me was the injury plague seasons he's been having. He can't seem to stay healthy. And, while early on in his career, Patrice Bergeron was he came into the league a second and third year, couple 70-point seasons. You think, okay, great, sky's the limit for this guy. He's going to be a point per game player. Not necessarily happened that way, but, and it's funny, this year at age 33, is he now? Has the best statistical season of his career.
34.
34. Okay, yeah. Best statistical success of his career with 79 points. And
but that's also maybe because things have trended up.
Sure, absolutely. And that definitely could be. And I kind of am leaning towards the fact that I think David Pastrnak actually drives that line more than anybody else, but that's just me.
Not in the playoffs.
Well, maybe not. But anyways, so you can't argue with the success this guy's had as a Boston Bruin, and he's had phenomenal years. He's been the top center for this team for so many years, and helped lead them to a Stanley Cup. So for me, number 5, Patrice Bergeron.
Right. Yeah, I would say my one knock on the Phil Esposito and his some of the Art Ross is that you're really talking about probably the leanest years in the league outside of World War II.
Yeah, but I mean,
in terms of talent level spread out.
Okay.
Yes, there was lean as in there's because the WHA had started, and that took away a lot of guys.
Bobby Hall and the House.
I mean, there was quite a few guys who ditched for the WHA, and also the style of play had really gotten to this, like, you don't have to skate much. You just like there was a lot of clutch and grind, and it was to me, if you were to actually go and I think watch games from all the different eras, I think you probably, I mean, not that you're not going to be entertained,
right?
But in terms of pure hockey, it probably was. It was definitely much different than what we saw maybe before and after that era, and with the lack of talent that was in the league. I mean, you went from 6 to 12 teams, and really the talent level just, it wasn't there for some of those other teams. Like, some of those teams were so stacked,
like Washington.
And and so it just, to me, whereas Patrice Bergeron, who is he's a little higher on my list actually. I think you're looking at an era where there is just so much talent everywhere. So yeah, of course he's won his one Stanley Cup. He's been to 2 finals, but I don't think we can measure, like, are we going to look back and go, well, Connor McDavid, if he never wins a cup, never won a cup, so he's definitely not a good player. no, like he's still probably going to be said as like, even if he just toiled in Edmonton and put up these massive seasons every year. Well, yeah, Connor McDavid was the best player in the league and never was able to do anything because management was horrible. Like we wouldn't blame him.
Oh no, absolutely not. I think now more than ever, it's become more of a team sport than it ever was. Before you could have 2 or 3 just really good guys and you could go and win everything. Right. Now you need supporting characters.
Right. Yeah. So my number. He was your number 5.
Bergeron was 5. Esposito was 4 for me.
Okay. Johnny Busick is 4 for me.
Okay. He came in at number 3 for me.
Okay, yeah. So we just kind of have those guys. And then Patrice Bergeron is 3.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah. So Johnny Busick has the most goals. He has the most second most assists and the second most points. And he's the second most games. He was and is a -7 over the course of his career. But he was with the Bruins before Bobby Orr was drafted when things were pretty rough, I think, in Boston for a minute.
Pretty rough, yeah.
And so he kind of was the guy. He's there before, and he helps usher in this new era of Boston Bruins. And then he played for the Bruins, I think, for 21 seasons.
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
From 1957 to 1978, 21 years he's with the team. Pretty much embodied Boston Bruins. I mean, he won his 2 Stanley Cups, but he always performed in the playoffs. I mean, he had multiple times, 4 times where he averaged more than a point per game in the playoffs, and we're talking 11 points in 10 games, 9 and 14, 20 and 15, 18 and 16. Like he was a playoff performer. He showed up, and to me, I had Bergeron ahead of him because I think, again, the talent level of the National Hockey League is higher now. And I think that Bergeron is going to be recognized as like a face of the Bruins for a long time. And I think that Johnny Busick, maybe in the shadow of Phil Esposito, Bobby Orr, there were other guys there around at that time. Whereas with the Bruins, of course, there's guys you're going to remember from that 2011 Stanley Cup championship team that helped them win. But Patrice Bergeron has been the face for so long, along with Zdeno Chara. So I have him a little bit higher on my list.
All right, fair enough.
I think we're probably going to be in consensus about 1 and 2.
I can't imagine why we wouldn't, to be quite honest. So number 2, Bobby Orr then?
You could actually say that.
I mean, you could make an argument for it, sure. Yeah, but
the argument would be what I just said about he didn't last as long.
True.
And he also was playing in an era where some teams just sucked. Like some teams were just terrible. Like multiple teams were just not good. And the Bruins were way better than everyone else, so of course he dominated. But I'll give him the nod based on the fact that he basically reinvented the position.
He did.
And I think ushered the way in for Ray Bourque to be Ray Bourque, who was, just, and you know what?
So freaking good.
If Ray Bourque had won the Stanley Cup with the Bruins, like take that Colorado Avalanche moment where Joe Sakic hands him the Stanley Cup. If instead Ray Bourque had won the Stanley Cup at the end and had handed it off to Joe Thornton winning the cup as a rookie, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
I think maybe Bourque is remembered more. He went to the finals once or twice. Did they go in the 80s at all?
No.
I don't
think so.
I don't remember if they were one of the Oilers punching bags or not. I can't remember, but
I don't think so.
Oh, they did go to the finals in 91, and of course they got pushed around by a little bit. A good Boston. Oh, you know what? Oh, did they go to the finals in 1990 as well? Did they play the Edmonton Oilers in the finals?
I don't think so, but I'm not a hockey historian, so that's a very good question.
Yeah, it was. It was the Boston Bruins.
Was it?
Yes. So right. They were a
punching bag.
A punching bag. They won in 5 games. So.
Bummer.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, hey.
So 2 finals in a row, and they just couldn't. They couldn't. They actually just kind of cruised through the Eastern Conference, and it was with the West, and they just couldn't
Yeah, and then teams like New Jersey.
Oh no, how could they have played Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup Finals in Did they play him
Boston?
Yeah.
No, they didn't play Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, so it was 1990 that they went to the final. Yeah. Yeah, because Pittsburgh played the North Stars
right
in 91.
And then the North Stars went bankrupt pretty much, ran out of money. So they actually, it's funny, North Stars, they had a bid to move to San Jose before the Sharks were a team. And then I can't remember the name of the brothers that pretty much were given an expansion bid. And so North Stars had to hang around for a couple more years before they moved to Dallas. They just ran out of money, which is just weird to me because it's the state of hockey. Like, you figure their attendance would have been up regardless, and recent success going to the Stanley Cup Finals, but
guys didn't know how to run teams, and
that's very true.
Time. You know, it was just such a different sport. But so Bobby Orr, Ray Bourque, number 1, number 2.
Yeah, no doubt. I think everybody's list is pretty much like that.
Although Ray Bourque had a much longer career with the Bruins. I mean, we're talking. He played
one of the longest careers in NHL history.
He played basically 900 more games with the Bruins. I'm switching my answer.
No, you're not.
Yes,
no,
Ray Bourque.
No, you're not.
Ray Bourque is the better Boston
Just
Bruin.
Stop. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Isn't he?
I can't.
He played 900 more games.
So what?
He has 700 more 600, basically 600 more points.
Yeah, points
Bobby
per game. Look at that. Bobby Orr is over a point per game. Ray Bourque, nope.
Ray Bourque played some in it. Ray Bourque, yeah, but towards the end of your career,
yeah, I know.
Of course, your point total is going to be down. And Bobby Orr just said, "Well, I got to go. My knees hurt." I'm sure that was all
exactly it.
Oh, my knees are hurting. Alan Eagleson stole my money. I'm quitting. Oh boy.
Okay, let's go to Vegas.
Let's go to Vegas. I don't have a just missed.
I do actually, but
because I
thought the two names on my just missed, I thought were just too funny not to put on there. So I got two guys that are basically going to eventually make the top 10 for Vegas, but just haven't played long enough, and that's Pacioretty and Mark Stone. Mark Stone, I think, has only got 18 games to his name. Yes.
That's fair. Yeah, I didn't have either one of them on my list.
Yeah, no. Mark Stone to me is one of the best two-way guys in the league, and he'll eventually take over that team, and that'll be his. And
he's in 18 games. He is the 28th highest scorer in the organization.
Boom.
Actually, Marc-Andre Fleury is the 31st highest scorer in the organization with 3 points in 107 games.
Freaking-tastic. Well,
his assists per game is a .028 per game.
Well, that's actually why the Flower made my list. So
actually, ironically, Vadim Shipachyov is 34th all time in scoring for the Vegas Golden Knights with 1 goal in 3 games.
Yeah. That is just too funny.
So, all right. Well, yes, the player with the most games played to least amount of points is William Carrier, 91 games with 12 points. So that's
impressive.
There you go. Okay. Well, your number 10.
Number 10 for me is a guy who played one season and went back to the Stanley Cup champs, David Perron. Came in, I mean, he was pretty much taking that expansion draft, and I figured, okay, this is actually a pretty decent pickup, I thought, for Vegas. I think St. Louis ponied him up as part of, don't take these guys to protect their D. Yeah. But 66 points in 70 games, you can't knock that kind of production.
No,
I mean, granted,
great.
He only put up 16 goals, but he was still very productive as a second-line winger for this team when they, essentially came out of nowhere, surprised a bunch of people, and then made the Stanley Cup Finals. So two trips in a row, and finally got it in St. Louis. But to me, he's number 10 on this list just because of the production.
All right, yeah, he's one ahead. He's at number 9, and Cody Eakin is number 10. Cody Eakin's 6th all-time leading scorer with 68 points in 158 games, and really just a great third-line center for this team.
No other list would you ever have a third-line center.
I don't know. I don't know where to go. So my number 9 is David Perron. Yes, and in one season, in 70 games, he has more points than all these guys who have played basically double the amount of games, or he's just behind all these guys who have played double the amount of games. So
yeah,
same amount of points as Nate Schmidt.
Nice,
66. Who's your number 9?
Cody Eakin.
Okay. All right. Cody Eakin. My number 8 is Alex Tuck.
Ooh, okay.
Yep. Alex Tuck, 4th all-time leading scorer, 35 goals in 152 games. He got 89 points, and he's gone, right?
He signed an extension. He's hanging around for a long time with this team.
Who am I thinking that got dealt from this team?
Got
dealt. Eric Howla.
Yeah, Howla. Yeah.
Howla and Tuck both came from Minnesota, and I sometimes mix them up.
Yeah, which is funny. Minnesota offered up both those guys. Here, take Hollis, and we'll give you Tuck. And basically, Tuck, to me, is going to end up being one of the better players for the next 5-6 years this team will have, which is just hilarious. So, given the depth that this team has now at the forward position, I mean, you think about that Wild Bill line they've got, and then they've got Stasny, Patch, and Mark Stone. Who knows if those three will hang around forever? But
Howla to the Hurricanes, though, is a nice pickup for the Hurricanes. Yeah.
It was. Absolutely.
Number 8.
For me, Colin Miller.
Okay. Didn't make my list.
But. Yeah, he's a guy that you can see that. I mean, the point totals aren't there, but you can see the difference. I mean, he is
basically
5th.
Got a point every other game.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see the difference this team is when he's in the lineup. Right, without him, they don't have any superstar defensemen, at least not yet. Shea Theodore might end up being that guy. But
Nate Schmidt. I mean, when Nate Schmidt was out those first 20 games, remember he got suspended for the PDOs or whatever, and they had a brutal stretch. I think that was the worst stretch of the team's history.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Was those first 20 games, and then he came back, and they ended up, of course, roaring back. They finished 3rd in the division, and made the playoffs.
I wanted to put him on my list. I guess maybe you could throw him as on my just miss, but I think a lot of these guys on my list are just because what I think they'll end up being more than anything else, because there's no stats to back up anything in terms of longevity with anybody. But yeah, Colin Miller, to me, he's a rock steady guy on this blue line for this team. So number 8.
My number 7 is James Neal. The way James Neal came into this organization, and for all intents and purposes, was like he was the captain in that locker room in some ways, especially early on. I just remember he had like some crazy overtime goal. Or maybe it was a goal really late, something where it was just this highlight reel of an overtime period, and it was James Neal, and I think it was the first win. I think he scored. Yeah, he had the first game-winning goal for the Vegas Golden Knights.
I'd believe it
in a game. And I think that people were, of course, excited about him coming in. Like, it was like, all right, we got this guy who's a first-line winger from the Nashville Predators because they couldn't hang on to everybody, and I really think that he was just that personality that drove that team. I think without James Neal, I don't think that team has the kind of success that we saw that first year. And I'm ignoring what he did this last year in Calgary. He should have stayed in Vegas. Should have just taken the
$5 million per season.
A little bit less to stay there. And granted, he did go to a team that had more regular season success last year, but
he might end up having more statistical success if he gets paired with Connor McDavid now. Like, might recapture his game.
Yeah, now he's... it maybe will work out for him in the end.
Right. Just one write-off season. So.
Right.
Okay, my number 7, Shea Theodore.
Okay, and he's my number 6.
Okay, yeah, and I think it's mostly because of what I think this kid's going to be and end up being his production. While it's not as good as maybe a Colin Miller, this kid is...
It's basically on par with Colin Miller.
It's almost
4.71, 4.76 in terms of points per game. Yeah,
but he's going to be a phenomenal defenseman, and he is this franchise leader in terms of face-off win percentage at 100%. One for one.
Sweet mother, where did you find that stat?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's my number 6. Yeah, for all the reasons that you just said, he's probably their most interesting defenseman that they have playing on their team right now in terms of potential to be very good. But he's not that young, right? He's 20. He'll be 25 during the next season. So he's definitely coming into a place where he probably is what he is.
Well, I think for
probably not gonna
defensemen, this is where they're going
that
to
much
start finding their game for a lot of guys.
If he gets he may get a little bit better. We'll see. I mean, maybe he has this absolute breakout year this year, which would be.
Yeah, and when he was with Anaheim too, he never really had that opportunity because there's so many good guys in front of him. So,
who's your number
6?
Your number 6.
I'm on number 6. For me, Paul Stastny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul Stastny didn't make my list.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, granted, he has only played one season, 50
He has only
games.
played 50 games. Yeah.
But 42 points in those 50 games, and I think he is going to end up being the de facto number 1 center next year, that line. Just because I think between him and Stone, their production will, kind of be a little bit better than, maybe guys a little higher on my list who have been with the franchise a little longer. But we'll see. I mean, either way, it's still it's a great problem to have when you have guess what? Carlson, Riley Smith, they're our second line. Well, they'd be freaking good second line. So can't hate that. Actually,
probably more like a Stanley Cup winning second line is those two guys as opposed to them being in the first. He missed my list just because he hasn't played that many games for them in comparison to some other guys. And 13 goals in 50 games. But he could. There's so many people that could be on this list because this list there's so many people, but there's also not very many people, so it's hard to choose, guys. My number 5 is Nate Schmidt.
Okay,
him missing those 20 games and coming back, it just showed me how impactful he is to that roster. So
that's fair.
There's my number 5, Nate Schmidt. This list could be completely different, by the way, at the end of next year.
It very well could.
Like Mark Stone will be on our list at the end of next year. He just didn't play even a full season, even a half a season. So according to our rules, you have to have at least played a full season, and I think that a full season is playing more than half the games in a year.
Right.
So
with this team, my number 5, excuse me, Alex Tuck.
Okay.
I think more it's for what I think this kid's going to end up being. He's a fantastic power forward. He's a guy that's going to have a lot of good production.
And a really good skater for a power forward.
Yeah, he'll be a guy that gets a lot of points by hanging out in front of the net on the power play, and got good hands. And I think, he just got his first 20-goal season, and 52 points last year. So it's only going up for me with this kid.
Cool. Number 4 for me is Riley Smith.
Same.
Riley Smith is the 3rd highest scorer in the franchise's history, and I think at this point a guy like Riley Smith is a crucial part to this team's success.
Yeah, I think he's, in terms of that line, I think he's the best two-way guy on that line between Marchessault and Carlson, and I think he does a lot of the dirty work and doesn't get a lot of the credit.
It's weird doing a list where you're basically just listing off the players that are currently on a team.
Right. Essentially, yeah.
And your number 3?
Number 3, Jonathan Marchessault.
Okay, Marchessault is your 3, so Carlson's your 2.
He is.
I have the 2 flipped.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that Marchessault, I think that there's just maybe something more to like the leadership side of it, and there's some intangibles there. And I'm also still not totally sure what you're going to get from Carlson long term.
That's fair.
Are we getting the 20 so he had 41 goals, I think, the 1 year. Yeah, 41 and 26, right?
43 and 24.
43 and 24.
Close.
So are we like, is William Karlsson going to be more likely to trend towards 40, or like what happens if is 26 his basement, or is 26 more like his average? That's what I'm wondering. So then is he more like a 21, 22 goal scorer? Or is he more like a 35 goal scorer? And I think we'll find that out this season. I think this season will be a really good barometer because, the hope, I guess, is that guys like Stastny are healthy, and you've got Pacioretty who's healthy, and you got Mark Stone for a full year. So you're really going to find out where William Karlsson slots on this team and find out what he's able to do. And guys are watching him now. That was maybe the big reason that he scored as many as he did, was because he kind of came out of nowhere. No one really had a scouting report on him.
I mean, to be quite honest, with Karlsson, his 5-on-5 play dipped a little bit, and that's where it kind of hurt his production, because essentially his goals and assists for power play stuff was, he only dropped a point in each category, so it wasn't like power play was hurting him, and in that terms and sense, but his time on ice went up a little bit too, and I think that's because the injury to Stastny maybe forced their hand a little bit, and they. But yeah, I think if he plays a little bit of more of a, I don't want to say sheltered role, but he doesn't have to see those top D men like maybe Stastny and Stone will. maybe we could see a Carlson that can put up, 25, 30 goals and maybe hit 60 points. Because I think that's the sweet spot, and I think that's where Vegas expects him to be, and that's where I think he's probably going to end up falling in, at least for the next few seasons. So we'll see how that turns out.
And I will point this out that Jonathan Marchessault is the leading goal scorer in the playoffs. Riley Smith, leading point scorer.
Nice. Bless you. So I'm sure we probably have the same number one.
Same number one. It is Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, all right.
And it was like, all right, I'm making this list. Okay, number one, Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, no question. I mean, really, he is the reason that they've had as much success as they have, and that's really that. I mean,
yeah, he took this team on his back that first season and took them to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think 927 save percentage, 4 shutouts in that playoffs. It was phenomenal. And after a year or two where, back to back, you had, Murray come in and basically, I don't want to say he, in 17 took over for him, but they just kind of were like, oh, Murray's healthy again. Well, Mark, you've done great, because he had 924 save percentage, but he was just like, let's just put this guy back in.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe a little chip on his shoulder too. So he came in and proved that he's still a capable number one starter to lead a team to a Stanley Cup. And
I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year.
Yeah.
Now that we're like honeymoon phase, I think is over.
Right.
Now it'll be interesting to see what happens here.
People take Vegas seriously. So good.
Well, all right. That is our top 10 Boston Bruins and Vegas Golden Knights. We will continue our series into next week, and we look forward to the rest of the start of training camp. You can hit us up on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Let us know what you thought of our list. If we missed anybody, or if we wildly over or underrated somebody, we'd love to hear it. We will talk to you soon.